Joey Clark.
Welcome back to News and Views in the Afternoon. Now, as promised, folks, in the studio right across the desk from me, we have Caroleene Dobson. Caroleene, good to see you again. How you doing?
Good to see you too. Happy New Year. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm excited for 2024, though just generally apprehensive as well. It feels like something's going to happen this year.
Well, elections are going to happen this year, so
I hope it's just that.
Yeah,
just the elections, because there's something in the air these days. But how's the campaign going?
It's been great. You know, I've spent a lot of time in all 13 counties that make up this district, and I've met so many inspiring folks that are, in their communities trying to make Alabama and America better, and it's truly humbling. So I've been so grateful to meet so many great folks here in District 2.
Is there anybody in particular that you didn't know you just met on the trail that's like, and what a character, I'm never going to forget that person.
Well, I probably shouldn't name names, but no, I have also met a lot of characters. And the kind of takeaway is, even if you're, out in a very rural area, folks are really informed. I think actually it's the folks in cities and our age and younger that are, even though we have all this information at our fingertips, we're less informed and more apathetic than folks in Goshen, Alabama, who just, get the, their print newspaper, but they know what district they're in. They know this whole redistricting saga. They know who's running. And so, which does not surprise me, having grown up in a small town. And, we got 3 channels growing up, and we discussed politics at the dinner table, even though you're not supposed to, because we stood to lose a lot more than folks. I feel like when you're in a city, you're kind of insulated from, bad policies can hurt, but they can really kill a small town, especially like Monroeville, where I'm from.
Right.
And so anyway, I think folks, farmers and folks in small towns stand to lose a lot more. So they're a lot more informed, which again, I think is important for folks to know, because it kind of goes against the stereotype.
There you go. Now, and last time you were on, you told me that you have been working a lot with the SLE Rodeo and putting a lot of that together. And I was wondering, I'd imagine if you're going to go for a committee assignment, agriculture committee would be a big one. And it sounds like you already have experience kind of in that world working with folks.
Absolutely. Yes. No, grew up on a farm. My family's been farming for 5 generations. Since we last spoke, I've had the true honor of being endorsed by the Alabama Farmers Federation, as well as the Texas and Southwestern Cattle Raisers Association and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. And given the makeup of this district, all of the agricultural and timber interests, I think it's really important that I would serve on the ag committee, given that this is a lot of the industry. And then you have, the trucking industry, for instance, is also huge in this district, but is often, interrelated to timber and agriculture. Right. So it's all kind of interrelated there, but I would love to serve on that committee.
That committee, are there any other committees you might be high in?
I'm also interested in the defense committee as well. Again, given the makeup of this district, our enemies are outpacing us in the production of military equipment.
Yes.
And this district is key to catching up. We've got Lockheed Martin in Troy. We've got Austal and Airbus in Mobile. And then, of course, we have Maxwell here. So we've got a lot of not only military bases, but also defense industry in this district. And I sadly, I think if you look at the state of the world right now, due to our weak leadership in Biden, we're kind of, in the same sort of situation as we were in 1940, unfortunately, with China, Russia, Iran, Venezuela. We're kind of at that precipice. And unfortunately, I think we have a little bit of an identity crisis as a nation.
Right.
Are we going to stand for freedom? Are we willing to make the sacrifices as a nation that it's going to take to fight for freedom?
Now, what do you make of the recent ventures abroad? Because in particular, the lack of our manufacturing capacity when it comes to defense manufacturing in particular was exposed. Just something as simple as ammunition,
right?
With this whole conflict between Russia and Ukraine. But what do you make of the current conflicts that are just cropping up everywhere, from what's happening in Israel and Gaza to the wider Middle East to, the threat of China and Taiwan, and then again, Russia is still there and everybody being bogged down in Ukraine. What do you make of the current map?
Well, that's directly attributable to Biden and his weak, non-existent leadership. And in some respects, he can't pass a field sobriety test, much less lead the free world. And then we also have Lloyd Austin, who literally went AWOL. And while he was AWOL, we lost 2 Navy SEALs. My heart goes out to their families. So, because we have weak leadership, these foreign enemies feel emboldened to start making moves because they know that we don't have a strong leader. And they also know that our military morale is as low as it has been in my lifetime. And I can't blame the military. They were kind of treated like guinea pigs during the COVID, with the vaccine mandate and then all of the DEI efforts, instead of focusing on recruiting the bravest and strongest and brightest and really treating them like the heroes they are. Our military numbers are as low as they've been since 1940. So, I think all of that combined is encouraging our enemies to start, making moves, and we don't have a concerted strategy or any sort of unifying leader to combat that.
Yeah, it's been rough to see everything kind of come unglued in the last few years.
Right.
And, Trump was going to be the one that started World War III.
Right. Yeah. No, he prevented it and that's the thing about Trump is, he's actually not a hawk. I think he would like to keep us out of conflict, but if they make us push that button, we're gonna get in and get out of there and get the job done. And I really think we can kind of trace all of this to the disaster that the Afghan withdrawal was. I think that, put in full relief to the rest of the world just what a weak leader and ineffectual leader Biden was. And from there, just started to spiral rapidly downward.
Now, would you classify yourself as more of a hawk or a dove, or is there a way maybe to thread the needle there where it isn't a binary thing?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, and I think Republican women are sometimes encouraged to appear hawkish so that we're strong and tough. And I refuse to fall into that category. I'm not a dove, but I'm not going to say, oh yes, we should fight just to make me look tough, because we're talking about our fighting men and women out there and their lives, and we're playing with fire. So I definitely think we've got to be the leader of the free world and stand for freedom. But we've also got to do what's best for our country, and and again, recognize all of these players that are making moves internationally, and be aware and be unified in a country, and say, if we want to get involved in Taiwan, are we willing to trade LA for Taipei?
Right. Oh, yeah.
Nuclear war is a real thing. And so I think for me, it's more about kind of waking the American public up and saying, look, like, this is where we are. Where do we stand? How hard are we willing to fight? And are we, like our grandparents, are we willing to go on rations? Or are we willing to make all these sacrifices? Because if there's a third world war, it will be a total war, and we've got to be ready for that. So I'm not advocating. I don't want to see us in that situation, but I also don't think we should just kind of curl up and die either.
I agree completely. Now, and again, folks, we're talking to Caroleene Dobson. She is a candidate for Congress running here in this brand new District 2. I've been preparing because I suppose I wear many hats. To be a moderator for the Alabama Libertarian Party's presidential debate they have upcoming in February, and I'll reveal one of the questions I'm going to ask them, and it's a good, I think, general question, just feel where somebody is in politics in the country right now. Why do you think the majority of Americans don't trust hardly any of our institutions? And what I'm thinking of is Gallup polling, that the trend is pretty obvious now. The only institutions above water and over 50% approval are the military. And I don't think they're talking about the bureaucracy. They're thinking of the airman, the sailor, the soldier, the Marine in their family wearing that uniform. And then small business is above water. Mm-hmm. Everything else, especially like media, Congress, single digits, we're talking about trust levels. Why do you think there's so much distrust right now in the American public?
Well, with respect to our government, it's certainly career politicians. There are too many of them up there, especially in Washington, trying to fund Washington instead of fix our country. I think the most recent CR vote was indicative of that. As Republicans, we're supposed to be standing for fiscal responsibility, and we can't keep kicking the can down the road. And the thing is, we may have to take a political hit for that. But I think you've got, on one end of the spectrum, truly some types that just want to jump in front of a camera, They're very self-interested or serving their special interest groups. But even the good politicians that have been there too long are so much more focused on their legacy than they are about the future of our kids. And that's why I'm running to fight for Alabama families. If that means, taking an unpopular stance to stand up for conservative values, I'm willing to do that, even if that means that it's going to be harder for me to get reelected but again, I think we've got so many, again, not bad leaders, but so many career politicians that want to, are starting to care, because they've been there so long. Well, what's my Wikipedia page going to read? Or how many social media followers do I have, instead of what's best for the folks of District 2, what's best for our kids. I'm raising my kids here in the district, and it's very important to me that we have opportunities and that our families are safe. And that's, what's going to guide me in Congress and making my decisions.
Well, we got to hit a break here, but when we come back, I want to get into some of the issues. I actually talked to one of your opponents, Dick Brubaker, last week. I want to ask you about this new era we're in on the question of abortion, and where the Republican Party should go since the overturn of Roe v. Wade, and what might be coming in this particular general election in this district, in a very competitive general coming up in District 2. But before I hit this break, this part of the program brought to you by Pest Pro Services, folks. And they're at Pest Pro Services. Ashley and her team are ready to help you with any pest control emergencies. Maybe the crown molding falls apart like sawdust, like termites, and termites have been there a while. Hey, homeowners insurance doesn't cover termite damage or treatment, so you might as well just go ahead and get the treatment done. Pest Pro has the Terminor HP2 injection unit. They get, several feet deep, and they can even lay down bait, so where when the termites hit that bait, they'll know they can take them out, no damage to your home. When they already have hit your home, they can still take care of them. They're at Pest Pro Services, but it's not just termites, mosquitoes, fire ants. Eddie's been worried about wood scorpions of late. Maybe that's why he's not here today. He saw too many this morning and ran away. What a man. Sorry, Eddie. See, I make fun of him when he's not here. But they can help you across the board. You might as well make Pest Pro Services your everyday pest control company. In the last 3-4 years, they've grown leaps and bounds, folks, hired more people, had to get a new location. It's a true sign of success. It's because they're good at what they do, and they're also just great people, constantly giving back to the local community. So that number, 265-9990, that's 265-9990. You can always go to ppsriverregion.com or just search for Pest Pro Services on the Book of Faces. When you want to know, call a pro. Pest Pro Services, and be sure to tell Ashley and that great team that Joey from News and Views in the Afternoon sent you. More News and Views in the Afternoon, well, after this. Welcome back to News and Views in the Afternoon. Again, in studio with me, we have Caroleene Dobson. She is a candidate running for Congress. And this is your first time running, for folks who don't know, like you've never jumped into politics before.
That's right. No, I'm not a career politician, new to politics. But it's, again, it's been a very humbling and inspiring, exhausting experience, but very grateful for it.
Well, that's awesome. Now, I tease the audience here on the issue of abortion. It's still, despite the historic overturn of Roe v. Wade, it's a massive issue, I think, of the nation still. Where do you land, especially on the question of, should this be a state function regulating this, or should there be a single federal standard?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess as a disclosure, I'm pro-life, I'm Christian, and especially being a mother just made me realize, what a miracle life is and how precious life is, and it should be protected. I think we need to address the issue of abortion with compassion and common sense and consensus. And the Dobbs court, rightly decided that there is no constitutional right to abortion and that it is a states' rights issue. And the people of Alabama have spoken. I stand with the people of Alabama. What I do get tired of is, the mainstream media wanting to paint pro-life people as extreme when you actually need to look at some of these, pro-choice states that it's, they're wanting to abort babies the minute before and the minute after birth.
Right.
In 2019, the Born Alive bill in the Senate, the United States Senate, it was basically a bill just saying that if a child is delivered alive for any reason, it's entitled to medical care. Basically, the Hippocratic Oath extended to a newborn. All but 2 Democrat senators voted against that bill. And it's like, how do you so it's, again, it's kind of like, who's extreme here?
Right.
So that, again, I get sort of, in so many ways, get tired of the mainstream media. And again, that's your point earlier about the lack of trust in the media. I think it's just compared to when we were growing up, even, which I like to think was not that long ago. We've got so many more sources of media, but so few that are trustworthy anymore. Kind of each preaching to the extremes.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely become siloed or bifurcated.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it makes it harder to kind of weed through what's actually news. And that's what's been, interesting running as a candidate is, how do you effectively get your message to folks? And I'm so grateful for radio
Right.
because, I feel like people can actually hear my voice, but, where do people watch the news? Do they get it from their phone? Do they watch it, cable or local TV? It's really been, I've learned a lot more about media than maybe I ever wanted to know running in this race. But
we are odd people, especially us radio people.
Well, I'm grateful for you radio folks because, again, I feel like it is one of the true avenues where you can hear my voice and it's not been manipulated or changed around. So I'm grateful for you radio folks.
Now, quick clarification, just speaking for myself, I still haven't grown up. I'm still growing. I'm still going through that maturation process, and I often fail here on the radio airwaves. But so in a general election, do you expect abortion, say you get the nomination here in District 2, do you expect that to be a big issue coming from the Democrat opponent in the general?
I think given just the state of the world right now, I mean, we truly have a crisis on the southern border. And then, our economy is in shambles and opportunities here. Again, I think, especially with respect to the issue of abortion, and it's a states' rights issue, and the people of Alabama have spoken. So again, I think that we're going to see a lot more about security and opportunity, and also maybe abortion in the context of just faith in our country. I really think Christianity is under attack. And again, back to what we were talking about earlier, if we are going to kind of be on the precipice of a third world war, and we're teaching our children that America's founded on evil principles, and that people are born being the oppressed and born being the oppressor, how can we ever hope to unify? And we're never going to all see eye to eye politically, but how can we ever hope to unify and fight for freedom and fight for America if we're trying to indoctrinate our kids that America's evil? And so that's one thing that we have to fight against.
Well, and I think you're right in the sense of, one, I've been kind of starting with the issues they're important to me, but foreign policy isn't the main concern. You're now seeing out of exit polling, particularly in Iowa, abortion isn't even the main concern. It is in those state elections that we saw in the last cycle. But you hit the nail on the head about the economy, in particular inflation, and the border. And that's definitely in the news right now, especially the showdown between Texas and the feds. So when you see what's going on the border, I mean, I don't even have a question.
Right. No,
the border.
Yeah.
I'm Chris Matthews all of a sudden.
Right. No, it is a national disaster. I mean, it is an invasion. We are being invaded. And I was so disappointed in the Supreme Court decision. I mean, here's Texas. They put up razor wire. It's not, they're not hosing people down. They're not, they just put up a very visible barrier to try to protect the sovereignty of their state. I mean, every state's become a border state, but especially Texas is right there on the front lines. 8 million illegals have come in during the Biden administration. I mean, it is a true crisis. And aside from the drugs and the crime and the terrorist cells and the, enemy militants that are streaming across the border, it's just from the social services perspective, we cannot withstand that influx of people on our social services. We are going to collapse if something is not done. We've got to send everyone home. We've got to complete the wall. or barrier. Again, some people, well, what about Big Bend National Park? Well, we've got the technology to build smart barriers where it's just infeasible or impractical to actually have a physical barrier. And then we've got to enforce the stay in Mexico policy. And also, I think we need to have more developed foreign policy towards our neighbors to the south. United States was not intended to be, a repository for all the refugees from every failing country in Central and South America. And, sadly, I can count on one hand the number of countries in that region that, that are on the rise, that are doing well, where democracy is flourishing. So I'm not saying that we intervene in all these countries, but I think, we've got to kind of try to address the root of the problem, try to hold Mexico accountable for just letting their country be totally run by the cartel. And so, I have, see liberal classmates of mine that you're saying, oh, give me your tired, give me your poor, the Emma Lazarus quote on,
the Statue of Liberty. Yeah.
Right. And you're like, that's a beautiful poem, but that's not that's not a governing doctrine of ours. That would be like using Top Gun to make our military decisions. So again, I mean, my heart goes out to refugees. My heart goes out to people that want to have a better life for their children. But we can't just, open the floodgates. Now, collapse.
As you were answering that, I think it's a very good answer, but it got me thinking about the border is a perfect example of a problem and a crisis that, if they're actually getting the outcomes they intended when they implemented these policies, is it really a problem? Or is it, we made a mistake, all these people coming in? And I'm not just talking about the Biden administration. This is multiple administrations, Republican, Democrat. I think it goes all the way back to the broken promise with Reagan in the 80s, where he gives amnesty, the border isn't secured. And it seems like, and the border is just one big example of this, that we don't solve problems anymore. We manage problems now.
We kick the can down the road. We put Band-Aids on the problems. And that's why I think, again, in the next 10 years, there's going to be a huge generational shift in power. And we need people our age to step up and try to take action and try to actually get to the root of some of these problems. And, I'm sure we will fail in some areas, but in others, that's the only way to fix some of these problems, is to actually get to the ultimate source instead of just putting Band-Aids on the issue.
Now, why do you think, though, there is this? Because if you ask me what's the problem, that's the sort of abstract way I would put it, is that we have a bunch of managers that lack a vision. And in fact, they get paid not to solve the problem. They get promoted not to solve the problem. It's not that you make a good impact. It's just that you make an impact, and DC loves that. So, have you seen this in the business world, or do you think I'm, off base here? But that seems to me like, the more I look at how major institutions are run, why they're not trusted, that seems to be the issue.
No, you're exactly right. And, I feel like I've gotten some comments. So I'm a transactional real estate attorney, commercial real estate attorney by trade. And I've gotten some raised eyebrows. Oh, well, you weren't a litigator. Why are you mostly litigators go into office? Well, there's certainly some skills that translate from litigation to talking, arguing. But, in my profession, I don't get paid if I don't, deliver results to my client. I've got to get a deal done. And I mean, certainly there have been times where it's just like, this other party's being unreasonable. This is not good. But 95% of the time, I'm having to navigate, a tricky negotiation for my client, and they expect me to deliver a result. They expect a closing. They expect a lease to get signed. So I think also it's kind of, unfortunately, I think politics, attracts a lot of the people that want to just kind of beat their chest and argue and, flamboyant types. Whereas, some of the more, back office attorneys like me, to like stand up for what I believe in, but otherwise keep my head down and work. I think we need more of that in DC.
No, I got to hit another break. But when we come back, kind of leaning on your experience, for instance, when we talk about the larger economy, there's so many different ways we could go about this, different angles. But one headline I saw is like just home sales worse in 28, 29 years. Commercial real estate, I keep seeing all these ominous headlines from all sorts of places. Like, it doesn't, as much as the Biden administration keeps trying to put lipstick on this pig, like, what are you doing to that pig then, man? Like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go into creepy Joe there.
No.
But it seems like the things are not going well when you kind of take the pulse of different benchmarks, and we can get into the economy.
Yeah,
after
no,
the
average mortgage payment has doubled in the past 3 years. So it's,
there
that's
you
the
go.
truth. That's the truth.
There you go. Welcome back. News and views in the afternoon. Again, in the studio, we have Caroleene Dobson, candidate for Congress. And where we left off is the economy. So when you look at the economy and what the government can do, well, it kind of be a two-pronged question. We'll start with the general economy and how to improve things. Then we'll kind of do a focus on this district in a second. But the general economy, what are you seeing out there? What's the problem?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of problems. Where do you start? But I mean, we've got to deregulate. I think we've got an executive branch that's just run amok. Too many agency regulations. We've got to cut taxes. We've got to be energy independent because I mean that's what's driving the cost of our goods. And yeah, our gas prices are down a little bit, but you know, for me as a farmer, it's the diesel, it's the fertilizer costs that are driving up all of the costs. So and it's not only that too, but it's, you know, when we're not energy independent, we are actively funding the bad guys. We are paying for Venezuela to invade Guyana. We're paying for terrorist training camps in the Middle East. So it's a matter of national security as well. And then, you know, of course, you know, when we're so dependent on electric vehicles and we have the extreme weather that we had this past week, you know, that's a huge vulnerability. It makes us more reliant on China for EV parts and assemblage. So we've got to be energy independent. And then finally, we've got to balance the budget. We've got to address this debt. You know, $34 trillion. Our interest payments are exceeding our military spending. So it's a combination of all of that, really. We've got to look at it from every angle, and we've got to go on a diet, really, you know?
Now, yeah, but see, hopefully Americans will learn, because it's always hard to sell somebody on a diet doesn't want to be on a diet.
Right. And no, that's, again, you know, with the most recent CR vote, you know, it's going to take some people that are willing to risk their popularity. You know, our founding fathers, you know, life and my sacred honor. You know, it's like it's going to take someone, a lot of us who are willing to stand up and say, no, we're not going to, you know, keep kicking the can down the road. We have got to cut spending. And hopefully, you know, we can cut all of this, you know, liberal far left, all these initiatives. For instance, Biden, you know, just okayed the spending of $1 billion on electric school buses, you know, so unnecessary and unsafe and unreliable for our American children. So there are a lot of, you know, leftist initiatives that can be cut, but there are also going to be, you know, some things that we have to take a haircut on that aren't going to be popular. And I think, you know, we've got to take a stand, and we've got to address the debt, because otherwise we're just mounting up debt for our children to have to inherit.
Right.
So we've got to think about what we're leaving them. You know, growing up on a farm, you know, it was ingrained in me very early that we're all just stewards. You know, God's given us all these resources, and we're supposed to make them fruitful. We're supposed to leave them better than we found them. And I don't think we have enough of that attitude in Washington, D.C. We've got too many, you know, career politicians who are just trying to, again, appease their special interest groups, or, you know, kind of protect their electability instead of making sure that our country's in a better shape for our kids.
Now, as you travel this new District 2, what do you see as the things, like the priorities for this district? We already hinted at it a little earlier, but good to go over again. What do you think are the assets, and how can we grow this area?
Well, I mean, we're so fortunate in District 2. We've got tremendous natural resources here. The timber industry, it's a huge opportunity. I mean, that is if you want to talk about sustainability, that is a sustainable industry. And there's never been a greater demand for wood products, although timber owners are getting the same stumpage prices now that they were in the early 90s. So there's kind of a disconnect there. It's really hard for folks in the timber industry to get H-2B workers, migrant workers that come and plant the trees. It's over regulated. So, on the one hand, we have the southern borders, floodgates are open, but the migrant workers who actually want to come here and make money and plant the trees and go home, that's over regulated. In fact, in 2022, that program was capped, so we couldn't even get workers to plant our trees. So deregulation is huge. The agriculture industry is also big in this district, the defense industry. And a lot of these also are kind of interconnected with the Port of Mobile, which is also part of this district, and the inland expansion up here to Montgomery. Once the rail line is completed from the Port of Mobile to the extension here in Montgomery, it will eliminate the need for 250 18-wheelers. It will take 250 18-wheelers off I-65, which will be tremendous. I talked to poultry producers, and poultry is a huge economic opportunity here in District 2, and they're dependent on deepening of the Port of Mobile so that they can have more grain supply, a longer grain supply. Right now, they only have a week's worth of grain. So if there were some sort of natural disaster or a labor strike or something, they would be out of food for their poultry really quickly. If we're talking, it comes through District 2. Tuscaloosa has a huge source of metallurgical coal. Again, if the Port of Mobile is deepened, they can directly ship out of the Port of Mobile. So there's a lot of synergy here, actually, that's really exciting, a lot of great opportunities if we can just have leadership and economic policies that allow those opportunities to flourish.
Great answer. And again, folks, talking to Caroleene Dobson, we're running out of time here. So one question that it's probably come up on your time on the campaign trail. I don't think it's like I'm trying to ventriloquize somebody else, but I'll put it this way. You look at Congress right now, and person comes from Anna Paulina Luna is a brand new mother up there, for instance. But I'd imagine there are people out there wondering, you've got 2 kids?
That's right. Yeah.
How old are they?
They're 4 and 1. Yeah.
So how do you manage being a mom and also being a member of Congress in that regard?
Yes, no, and I certainly is a challenge, is a sacrifice. Fortunately, I have some great examples. Martha Roby, her kids were the exact same age when she ran for the first time. Senator Katie Britt, she is the only mom in the Senate with school-age kids, and she's doing a fantastic job. And I'm so fortunate to have a great support network. My husband, my parents, we've got some great friends and family, and it's really important to me that my kids are raised here in the district. So I would plan on going up to DC, Monday through Thursday, and then utilizing that direct flight, because I want my kids raised here with Alabama values. And I also think that, the only way for me to truly represent the folks of this district is to be living here, and not become some creature of DC. But, at the end of the day, again, it won't be easy, but it's nothing compared to the sacrifices of our military families. If they can do all that they can do, then I can deal with a little inconvenience and maybe a couple of missed ballet recitals. And it's worth it if it means our kids have a better future.
Yeah, and it's like I know for a fact you're professional, like we're working a lot already. Part of me feels like the question's a little antiquated, but it's also a serious one. I can see people thinking about, I want to spend all my time with the kids.
Right. No. And I appreciate, people, I mean, that's what makes this part of Alabama so great. It's we do have family. Family is so important, and family values are important. So I understand, kind of the concern and kind of empathy about that. But yeah, look, I worked up during 2 pregnancies. I worked after 2 pregnancies. I made partner when my first child was 18 months old. So I'm used to working hard and kind of having to balance that. Again, this will be different, but it's worth the sacrifice.
Now, if folks want to like what they're hearing, want to support your campaign in any possible way, how can they do so?
Yes, no. Thanks for listening. So first of all, you can pray for me. That would be huge. And please get out and vote on March 5th. The primaries are coming up, and it's so important that we have a good showing in the primary. You can find out more about me at www.dobson4congress.com. Dobson for Congress on Instagram and also on Facebook.
Well, great seeing you again.
Yeah, it's great to see you too. Thank you so much for having me.
Again, folks, Caroleene Dobson, candidate for Congress. And yeah, I've been saying, Dick Brubaker, don't you be asleep. Don't you be asleep. And you too, Mr. Albritton, State Senator Albritton, excuse me. Y'all don't be sleeping. We'll be right back.
He may not know whether he's coming or going, but whether you're going